wondering how I got into this mix.
Check 1 2, check 1 2. This is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today is Friday, December 16th, and this is the Conscious Resistance Live. We do this every Friday, usually about 5 p.m. Central, via Facebook, via our Conscious Resistance Network Facebook page, and also with our partners at Wake Up News, The Mind Unleashed, Activist Post, and a few others that we work with on this to get the word out. So thank you everyone who is tuning in. I have a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for my weird voice, and if my eyes look all red and I look like I'm really high, I promise it's not that I'm high. I am just fighting the cold. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, let me know you can hear me okay, and as usual, if you want to start sharing this out to any pages that you are a part of, that would be great. We're going to cover a few important topics today, as we do every single week, try to keep you informed and inspired about what's going on in the world, and also generally aware of the solutions when it comes to all the heaviness that's taken place, because there's a lot of heaviness, and we're going to cover that because this is not about running away from reality, but it's also not focusing on the darkness, the negativity, without offering a solution. And I tend to find that there are solutions in all areas of this fight for a better, more free, more conscious world if you just look for them. Some people don't want to see them because it involves work, it involves changing their personal habits in their life, doing more than just complaining behind a computer screen or just being apathetic. But if you're focused on the solutions, and if you put in the effort and the time, and you are motivated to change your actions and your thoughts and your words and align them together with your principles, you can really create some positive change in your life, and you can see that ripple around and change other people around you. So once again, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. This is the Conscious Resistance Live. We do this every Friday. Please go ahead and share this in any groups that you're a part of on your personal timeline, asking your friends to tune in, share it with your friends, tag other people that might be interested. And then secondly, go ahead and post a comment below where you're listening from. I'm here in Houston, Texas, and I know others are listening from around the world, and I appreciate that very much. So today, the topic's DAPL. Many of you know that I just got back from the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline from Standing Rock last Thursday, and on last Friday's episode, I talked more about this, and we went through everything I experienced. So if you really like to hear more about that, last week I talked for an hour and 20 minutes. I'm not going to do that one again, but I definitely want to talk a little bit about an update that I wrote just yesterday for the antimedia.org. For those who are unaware, I write for the antimedia.org, I write for activistpost.com, for mintpressnews.com, and of course for the Conscious Resistance Network website itself, and for our Facebook page. So lots of things going on. As I said, we're going to talk about fake news. So let's, I think we're ready to just go ahead and get started. I'm just sharing this all over the place. And thank you everybody who's checking in Fort Worth, Charleston, UK. We got people all over the world now who are tuned in. And we want to be about solutions. So let's get into talking about solutions. First story, as I mentioned, this right here, I wrote for the anti-media. It's not over. The fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline enters a new phase. I'll post the links to you guys directly below so you can follow along through the Conscious Resistance page. So what this article talks about, what I discuss here, is that, as many of you know, the recent decision by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, it sort of took some of the wind out of the sails, so to speak, of the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Some people believing it to be just a ploy, others, believing it to be the end. And quickly we were finding out that this is nowhere near the end of the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline, especially in light of the incoming president-elect here in the United States, who has ties to the oil industry, who is invested in Energy Transfer Partners, and who has chosen the former governor here in Texas, Rick Perry, he's rumored to be the Secretary of Energy, and Perry himself sits on the board of Energy Transfer Partners and sits on the board of Sunoco, the other company involved in funding the Dakota Access Pipeline. So you have a very oil-friendly president coming in. It doesn't look good on that. And so this article the first couple paragraphs, I just do a recap of what happened in that situation, how the veterans came in flooding the camp, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers backed off a little bit. So we believe that this was a small victory. And then you have people from the Morton County Sheriff's Office they've been calling for months now for federal support, for federal law enforcement to be sent in to help them suppress the protesters, essentially, the water protectors. But Morton County Sheriff's Office, they were actually given a setback as the Department of Justice denied them a request for assistance. So basically, they're not going to get any more support coming from the feds. You also had Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota responding to the DOJ's action, saying that the Obama administration has again declined our request for both law enforcement personnel and funding to address the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. So he also said that they've already reached out to the next administration to help law enforcement, quote, keep the peace as well as issue the easement so that construction can be completed. So you have a senator from North Dakota saying he's already talked to the incoming administration, that they're going to work with the cops to keep the peace, whatever that means, and to get this thing completed. So the fight is not over by any means. Energy Transfer Partners also filed a lawsuit trying to force the Army Corps of Engineers to allow construction. The judge in that case, James Boasberg, who's been involved in many of the stages of this fight for the last few months, he basically said that the case will be heard in February, but of course by that point President-elect Trump will be involved, and it's unsure what he'll do. Although, as I've said, he's already nominated Rick Perry for his energy security. He's working with people from Goldman Sachs. He's working with of course, his appointment Secretary of State, the ExxonMobil CEO. So yeah, lots of things going on here that indicate that the incoming administration will be very pro oil here. Now, we also have Dave Archambault II, who's the tribal chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux, basically saying that he wanted supporters to go home. At some point, he released a statement after the Army Corps of Engineers decision saying, we don't need you guys necessarily to be here, we appreciate this. And this had some people confused, like, should we respect his wishes or should we leave? Obviously, as a tribal chairman, in the eyes of some people when it comes to tribal governments in the relation to the U.S. government, some people see this is, almost like selling out people. Like, we have to deal with the U.S. government because they suppress our communities. But at the same time, the tribal chairman, I wouldn't expect that he can speak for every single person within this tribe and within the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. There's a lot more going on than just what the tribal chairman says. And on December 10th, the Ocheti Sakuwan camp, they basically released a statement saying that they extinguished one of the sacred fires. It's not a time of ending. People have come from all over the world, from many nations, from many traditions. Prayers and hundreds of languages were spoken around the fire. Dances that are hundreds of years old, passed from generation to generation, were danced around that fire. And as the last coal of this fire goes out, the smoke goes into the air and swirls, and the heat that it warmed us with together in these days is now cold, has gone back deep into the earth. This is not an end, but when another fire is lit, what happened here will not be forgotten. And then you also had the Sacred Stone camp make a post saying that the main fire was put out, but that there are other fires going. The fight is not over. I personally believe this is the beginning of a new chapter. The Indigenous Environmental Network's Dallas Goldtooth, who many of you may have known if you followed the Dakota Access Pipeline actions over the past few months, he's also talked about he's shifting into a new phase, helping build a movement that focuses on divesting from banks and companies. And this is where the solutions come in. This is what we've talked about for the last few months since I've been going to Standing Rock in August, and every time we've done a report, is basically to see that the solutions are to stop supporting the banks and the companies that fund these type of projects. And whether that's in Flint, Michigan, or any other pipeline fight or any other sort of fight to preserve the water and to preserve nature, you have to look at in which ways are you serving this institution. And I think ultimately, if you're paying taxes to the U.S. government, you're also, fighting against yourself here, because the U.S. government, the state institution itself, it actually gives subsidies to the oil industry. It has helped the oil industry become the monopoly that it is, and helped to suppress and block out alternatives to the oil industry, like hemp, hydrogen power, and plenty of others who have come out and said that they could challenge this. So it's the state itself, and the state only survives through funding, through what we consider to be taxation, non-voluntary taxation, because if you decide you want to go against this program, you will be, put in a cage. So they hold a gun to your head, metaphorically, threaten you by saying that if you don't pay the taxes, then they will imprison you. And then they take that same money to subsidize the oil industry and monopolize that so you don't have any other alternatives. So that's why when you're going to fight these actions, you're still using their product. Ultimately, the best solution, as Dallas Goldtooth and others are starting to realize, are tactics like counter-economics, agorism, creating outside of the system, competing with it, instead of using their products, working with and supporting others who are building alternatives, and at the least removing our money from their systems. And that definitely goes with the banks. These banks are involved in financial crisis, financial problems all around the world, financial crimes that have affected people no matter where you're listening from. The financial crisis of 2008, 2007, it affected people all around the world, and these banksters are responsible for it, and they're actively infiltrating and working together with the government. It's important to remember that. So this is the way I end this article here, and then I think I already shared the link to you guys. As the fight against DAPL evolves, the water protectors have been giving a harrowing reminder of what they are fighting against. On December 5th, a pipeline leaked 176,000 gallons of crude oil only a couple hours away from the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. The leak was apparently contained within hours of its discovery. Wendy Owen, a spokesman for Casper, Wyoming-based Truco, which operates the pipeline, told CNBC. Interestingly enough, the pipeline uses the same type of electronic safety equipment that is supposed to keep the DAPL from leaking. And for the water protectors, this spill is just another in a long list of reasons why the black snake, known as the Dakota Access Pipeline, must not be completed. So it's going to continue. This fight is going to continue into a new phase, which involves divestment from these companies. And I believe come January, depending on the decisions Trump makes, it probably will continue with active physical resistance, nonviolent resistance to what's taking place out there on the ground level. Now, of course, the big topic of the week, I feel like, of the meme, this final meme that they're putting in our minds. Check out the Mississippi Stand too. Absolutely, definitely. Check out all of the resistance, the pipeline resistance that is taking place across the world and across the United States, down in Mexico, down in Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Iowa. There's a lot of resistance in a lot of different spots. And it's not even just pipelines. There's indigenous communities fighting against hydroelectric dams, fighting against deforestation, and fighting against a lot of tough things and crimes against humanity that actually, when you think about it, they come with the modernization of our species. You know, in a lot of ways. For example, this cell phone and these cameras that we use, lithium-ion batteries, those come from indigenous communities, lands that are being torn up and destroyed, and in order to provide us this convenience. As I think Jeremy Turner is trying to be a troll here, but whatever device you're using right now to watch a Facebook Live video is supporting the petro devil. So the silly thing is, people like Jeremy, they think that basically you can't oppose something while still using it. As I just mentioned, there's a monopoly that exists on the oil industry. So there aren't very many alternatives because they've been pushed out and driven out of the industry. And the state and the corporations work together to create that monopoly. So obviously, if there were alternatives that didn't involve destruction invasive processes, then the people would choose that. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny that it's like the purpose is to just you're stating the obvious, but the obvious, without that monopoly, then we would have other options. So we can complain and we can state the obvious all day, or we can choose to take action. And as I said, you can remove yourself from these banks, you can remove yourself from these corporations. I have my own opinions on resource-based economy, but let's move forward. The big meme that we've been getting beat into our head this past couple months is fake news. I just wrote this one yesterday for Activist Post. The establishment's plan to divide Donald Trump, fake news, and Russia. I definitely recommend you reading this one because it's a little bit too extensive for me to totally read to you guys here on the show, but it's there on Activist Post. I'm going to drop the link in right about now, and you can check it out yourself. But essentially, this is the theory that I've been working on for a while now, that what I'm seeing and what I think that we have this push, for one, to say that Russia, the long-term enemy of all that is good in this world, that every American is taught that Russia is the enemy of America, and the Cold War continues. So we have this push for Russian propaganda from the Americans saying that the Russians are responsible for WikiLeaks. Don't read the WikiLeaks. Don't read what they say about Hillary Clinton. They hacked the election. Vladimir Putin was directly involved, and all these things without providing much verification, without providing any sort of hard evidence to the American public. And they're repeating statements from anonymous government officials and expecting you and I to just trust that because it comes from certain institutions that have been established or whatever. So you have that going on, and at the same time, that is in a way also an attack on Donald Trump. And I want to, as I said in this article, let me read this section. First, I should make it perfectly clear I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump, nor am I a supporter of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, or any other politician. As far as I'm concerned, these people are all a part of the problem. At best, they are naive for thinking they can change the system from within. At worst, they are actively shilling for the establishment to propagate division and support for this dying system. So I don't support any of these candidates, but I can recognize that there's a narrative that is being pushed. There's a narrative that is being pushed within some of the quote-unquote alternative independent media who are buying into this narrative that Donald Trump is an outsider. I am not one of them. That is not my belief that Donald Trump is an outsider. I think if you do the research, it doesn't take long, you can see very differently that, or you can see that he's not very different from most of the people. He's worked with a lot of these establishment people, and now his appointments again, the Texas governor tied to oil industries, Goldman Sachs people. My name is Derrick Broze, DERRICK BROZE, the Conscious Resistance Network, activistpost.com, the anti-media. So he's being pushed as an outsider, and plenty of the independent alternative media, whether purposefully or as part of some larger plan, are buying this narrative and pushing this narrative out there that Donald Trump is outside of this mainstream. And basically what I'm seeing is this is being used in a way that allows Trump to take that position of being an outsider and to basically be a great divider. That's what I call him in this article. Trump's role seems to be that of a great divider. He's been brought on board to say absurd one-liners that can be repeated by the media ad nauseum and create a panic in half of the population that believes he will launch World War III. Meanwhile, Trump will betray his supporters by breaking campaign promises like every single president before him. Trump will betray his supporters by instead, he will bring about more of the same old game we have seen played through the Obama, Bush, and Clinton regimes. Trump gets the privilege of running his mouth with controversial statements, whether he means them or not, and the media is happy to repeat everything he says. The bottom line is that Trump is the establishment's anti-establishment candidate. He is being used to create division while promoting a false resistance to the true establishment. So he's working, in my belief, and what it seems like is they brought about the faux revolution character. They want the independent alternative media, people like InfoWars and others, who have a massive audience, much more than I could ever hope to reach. And they got this audience believing that somehow we got an anti-globalist Donald Trump outsider elected, and now he's going to stand up against the big bad liberals and the shadow government. And he's working with Russia, not so bad. They're not so bad. All of a sudden, they're switching. The conservatives are switching and saying that Putin and Russia, they're not so bad. We can work with them. So they get the establishment, the parasitic corporate and political classes. They get three things out of this. But they basically get an attack on Trump, their supposed outsider. They get to use the media then to say, oh, well, Trump was only elected because of Russian hacking, of Russian propaganda. So then again, that demonizes Russia. And at the same time, that demonizes the independent media. So Activist Post, Anti-Media, Mint Press News, The Corbett Report, all the different shows and friends that I have that I've worked with, the people that I've written for, all these people have been called either fake news, and this has been reported by Washington Post and others. And then at the same time, they've said that we're possibly part of Russian propaganda. Then fast forward to just last week when, as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, the yearly military budget that in 2011 going to 2012, President Obama signed, ensuring that the U.S. government has the right to indefinitely detain American citizens who are tied to terrorism. And who makes up the rules of what terrorism is? The U.S. government, once again. So this same bill that was used to bring in indefinite detention in 2011, 2012, was now used to pass what they call the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act, which is designed to combat Russian and Chinese propaganda. So put the pieces together here. They say that Trump, somebody that many people are unhappy with, that he was only elected because of Russian interference. So you have a demonization of Russia, push towards going sanctions with Russia, fighting against Russia. And this news was spread through independent fake news media, whether purposely or inadvertently. And now they're passing laws. And now, as of yesterday, as you guys I'm sure have seen, Facebook is announcing their plan to tackle fake news, and it's raising questions over limitations. You can see in some of these images here, you can now go up to a post and right-click and put you want to report it as fake news. And if that happens, you can still share the articles apparently, but it'll let you know, hey, by the way, third parties have disputed the veracity of this article. And those third parties, who are they going to be? They're going to be Snopes and ABC and other corporate media, part of the same 5 or 6 corporations that control everything you see, and they want you to trust them. So what we're seeing unfold, as I said, this is the establishment's plan to divide. Use Donald Trump to bring in a Trojan horse candidate that many people buy into and believe that he's leading a faux revolution. Then create the left start attacking him, whether, again, knowingly or unknowingly, they're buying Russian propaganda about Russia, saying, oh, the Russians interfere with the election. Clinton could have got in there. No, the truth is that whoever released those documents to WikiLeaks, whoever hacked the DNC, they exposed that Hillary Clinton was trying to suppress Bernie Sanders' rise, even though I'm not a Sanders supporter, I can admit that. They were also admitting that Hillary Clinton was working closely to Goldman Sachs, and of course they exposed many other things through the Podesta emails, including what I mentioned last week, Pizzagate, which, by the way, I'm still investigating, and we'll talk more about that next week. But all these things, they want you to believe that there's no reason to look into that. And you could go and find all the media, the Deadstream corporate media, saying at the time, there's no reason to read those emails. If I was you, I wouldn't read them. Basically making it sound that Americans could be charged for crimes for wanting to read these emails. And it's just insane. It's ridiculous that this is what they put out there that they want you to buy into. And so they bring in this supposed outsider to create division among the people. I've never seen the country this divided politically, and people are going at each other's throats. Then they use that same meme to say, well, Trump's rise was helped by Russia through fake news, and we now need to start regulating fake news with laws, with the private sector regulating via Facebook and Google. Where is this going? And then today, President Obama gave his last press conference for his run as president. Obama blasted domestic propagandists, saying that they made voters feel vulnerable to fake news. So now we're domestic propagandists. And again, think of the language. How many bills out there that already exist, like the NDAA and other laws that say that the U.S. government can focus on domestic terror, domestic radicalism, domestic radicals, or domestic propagandists? How long is it before this language is used to come after those of us in the independent media and to arrest us because they are saying we're spreading propaganda, because we're spreading Russian propaganda, because we're agents of the government, of the Russian government, or we're agents of this? And meanwhile, the public, those of you who are buying into this division and allowing yourselves to be emotionally played and mentally played, those of you who are buying into the deception, maybe you will believe that we are Russian propagandists. Maybe you will be this, because the way I see it, as things progress, we won't only be fighting against exactly Zachary Coons, a war on ourselves, as they showed in 1984. The people start policing themselves through peer pressure. So it won't only be that we'll be fighting against the agents of the state, we'll be fighting against other people among our brothers and sisters out there who have been so propagandized that they believe the state, the establishment's version of events. And when we share an article, they're going to say, oh, that's that fake news, I'm not even going to read it. So it's a scary time we're moving into, but this is why we need to build community. This is why we need to come together and tighten our strings, our community strings. One of the concepts I'm promoting constantly is freedom cells, freedomcells.org. If one of my brothers who's watching could post a What is a Freedom Cells video, that would be helpful. What is a freedom cell? And it's basically a community mutual aid group getting people together to work together so that we can't be divided, and working on all kinds of tasks, whether that means self-sufficiency, whether that means philosophy, knowledge, skill sharing, or let's take it with this fake news thing, right? Perhaps your freedom cell, your 8 group of people comes together and you decide that you want to be able to dissect, is Pizzagate real, or is there something real to these Hillary emails? Well, let's divide up the WikiLeaks emails between 8 of us, and we'll just go at it for an hour, a couple days, whatever, and then you have other people to depend on, and you can come back and say, you know what, we did our own research, this has been debunked in our eyes, and you can spread that information. Or your 8-person freedom cell can have backup supply of food and water, because I don't know if you guys heard, but Corpus Christi, just a few hours away from here in Houston, yesterday their residents were all at the grocery store trying to buy food, trying to buy water, because they were told that their water supply was now contaminated. Water quickly sold out, bottled water, all of it quickly sold out. What are you going to do when that situation happens? If you have 8 other people, your freedom cell, who have 3 months worth of backup supply of food and water, you could work together and handle emergency situations, preparedness situations. You can educate each other, you can share skills. It can be done. So check out freedomcells.org. I believe that it's a solution for many of the problems that we're facing. Now, the next topic that we're going to get into is another is another big one. So we've talked about Dakota Access Pipeline, we've talked about fake news, and this fake news moves us into the last topic of the evening, Syria, and how it's difficult to discern if what we're seeing in the mainstream is fake news or if it's from, if we're seeing the truth. Which way are we seeing it? Hey guys, has Derrick already covered Standing Rock? Yes, I've been to Standing Rock 3 times. I just got back last week. For anybody who wants to see my reporting on there, you can go to youtube.com/conscious resistance. Also, people are saying you need my email so you can keep up with my work because of Facebook. This is a solution, again, besides freedom cells. How do we fight fake news? Before I move on to the last topic, how do we fight fake news? Well, for one, each of us needs to be more educated. We need to work harder at freeing ourselves from disinformation. And if you don't want the government or Facebook to get involved, then more actively go read and check sources. Guys, it doesn't take that long to do this. I mean, I feel like I need to do videos where I show you how easy it is to quickly debunk something, and just show you that, because it doesn't take a lot of time to research something. Now, the next thing I want to post though here is, speaking of fake news, earlier in this week, I went out to Houston, here where I live in the city of Houston, and I did a man on the street interview. I just posted it right there. You should be able to see it in just a second. It's a man on the street interview called "Do You Trust the Government to Regulate Fake News?" There it is, just popped up. And I talked to 3 different people. You can see it, 3 different people. It's a 9-minute interview. I like doing man on the street interview. And you can see that really people don't seem to want the man on the street. I mean, they don't want the government to regulate their communication. Some people may think so. Where do I get my funding? I get my funding from writing for Activist Post, writing for the antimedia.org, and writing for mintpressnews.com. Other than that, I'm totally self-funded and, viewer audience supported through my Patreon account, patreon.com/Derrick Broze. I get a little bit of money every month for people who want to support me on a monthly basis, and I appreciate every one of you. But I do this independently as an activist and both as a journalist. So this is my true information. You can follow me on the Conscious Resistance Network. You can follow me, derrickbroze.contently.com. I'll go ahead and post that one right now too, actually. Now, the solution though, this is what I really want you guys to pay attention to. I got some of you signed up last week. I've already presented this to, I'm not going to say who yet because we're going to announce it soon, but several large Facebook pages that have huge followings and that are worried about what's going to be the future now that Facebook is trying to start limiting us and changing the algorithms and things like that. How do we get past them and beat them so that they can't suppress our reach? So as I mentioned last week, I use text lists. I think this is going to be the future for many people who want to survive, because until they start straight up blocking the news on your phone, I can reach you directly right now. I'm going to post a link right now to my text list. It's through a website called remind.com, which is set up for teachers to speak to their students directly and email them about upcoming homework assignments. But I use it as a journalist. So I have a class called DB Journalism. I have another class called Positive Affirmations. And you can join these for free. I don't see your phone number. You don't see mine. And I only send out maybe a positive affirmation once every week or so, but I send out a text message every time I post a new article and every time I post a new video. So for instance, yesterday, new article, it's not over, fight against Dakota Access Pipeline enters new phase. Then after that, new article, the establishment's plan to divide Donald Trump, fake news, and Russia. I'll send out one for the video I just talked about as well. But if you're interested in joining these, I'm going to post the link right now. If you'd like to follow my journalism directly, and this is what I'm going to suggest to people, my friends who are running these large pages. We need to stress to our audience, to you guys, if you want the independent media to survive, if you want the large Facebook pages that have exposed the corporate media and have done a great job of communicating truth, we need you to follow us directly. So click the subscribe button, click the follow button. This text list here, I'm going to post it right now. This is for my journalism. I'm going to post this real quick. If you want to get updates, text updates every time I release a new article or a new video, I do different types of content. Follow this remind list right now. There it goes. And I'm going to post another one if you'd like to follow my positive affirmations list. Last week we had about 30 new people sign up, and we're going to post the positive affirmation one too. This way, this is what I'm saying. So this way, even if they start suppressing our links or they label our stuff on social media as fake news, we can still communicate with each other. Maybe, as some people have suggested, we will end up speaking to an echo chamber, right? Where all the regular folk that we're trying to reach are convinced that, oh, that's just fake news. Facebook told me that that's not trusted by third parties like Snopes. I shouldn't read it. And maybe so. Maybe we will create an echo chamber. But at the least, we have to keep this information alive. history has shown that totalitarian, tyrannical regimes start to control the freedom of the press, along with other elements of our free society. We already see the corporate takeover now out in the open. And this has been going on for some time, but now it's out in the open with Donald Trump, and it probably would have been out in the open with Hillary Clinton. It doesn't matter. But this corporate takeover is out in the open. The suppression of our freedom through the surveillance and the police state is out in the open, and they are coming more and more after whistleblowers and the press. We need to find ways to communicate directly. So I just posted that journalism text list. I've already got updates saying some of you guys are joining. Thank you. And now I'm posting the positive affirmations text list right there. If you'd like to get updates, just when they come to me, as some of you know who listen to my show here, I do positive affirmations, and we usually end the show with another positive affirmation. My second book, Finding Freedom in an Age of Confusion, right here, also has a list of positive affirmations, and we're going to do one of those later at the end of the show. But that's my little rant. So if you want to be tuned into what I'm doing, check out that journalism text list through Remind. Check out the positive affirmations. You can follow me at derrickbroze.contently.com. That's a social network specifically for journalists. I post all of my content there. If you want the information, the resources are there, okay? It's going to take an active public, though. You can't just sit back and expect us to spoon feed you the information through social media anymore. It's not going to happen, brothers and sisters. We got to find new ways to reach each other. We got to outsmart this machine that thinks that it can stop us and oppress us and stop the free flow of information. But as Chelsea Manning has said, information wants to be free, and it will be free. So let's get into the last story here. As I mentioned, it deals with a difficult topic, Aleppo, Syria, and fake news related to Syria. We've been talking about fake news and trying to understand if what we see is reality. We know that the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq were lied, and we were lied about that and sold a war. We know that the Gulf of Tonkin never really happened. We were sold a lie into the Vietnam War. We know many times that the U.S. corporate media and Western corporate media has lied and tried to portray an image or sell an image to us to get us to support and go to war. And again, how do they do these wars? They do it through taxation, through your money. So remember that. But all the Western media has been telling you, and I've seen plenty of you out there, and maybe you are of this belief, that we need to send U.S. troops to Syria, or that what's actually happening in Syria is a genocide. And we can't get too deep into this if you're totally unaware of the situation. Essentially, a civil war has been brewing and happening in Syria for going on 6 years now. The United States has been funding quote-unquote moderate rebels, including some of the same groups tied to ISIS or Daesh, while Syria and President Bashar al-Assad has been supported by the Russians, and they've been fighting. So you have the Syrian government and military fighting against supposed rebels funded by the West, Turkey, the United States, and other Western nations. And what's really taking place, as I mentioned earlier in this attack on Russia, is Syria is part of a proxy war to take over that whole area. And we know this from Wesley Clark Jr., or General Wesley Clark. Look him up. They've talked about the plan since 9/11 to take over Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iran. And part of that plan has come together. So the Western media is telling us that there are people committing suicide in the streets, and that Putin is helping fund a genocide because of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, that they're just killing citizens in the street. Meanwhile, what's happening is citizens are running back to military-held areas, government-held areas, and there are videos showing them celebrating. So the Western media is calling it a genocide. The down south, like agencies like Telesur, like Latin America, which obviously have an anti-American slant, they're saying regime change promoted by corporate media in Syria. And they're talking about Eva Bartlett. If you haven't seen this video of her, it's really pretty awesome. She kicks some major ass here. Journalist Eva Bartlett destroys mainstream journalists over Syria and Aleppo. You can watch this video. I'll show you guys that right there. But one of the Western journalists says, how you talk about the corporate media, the Western media, the lies. You call us liars. How can you justify all this? And she basically says, well, for one, none of these supposed mainstream Western sources are even on the ground. She's like, when's the last time you guys actually had somebody in the ground? And then she also talks about the White Helmets, as some of you have mentioned. These organizations are relying on the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is based in Coventry, UK, which is one man. They're relying on compromised groups like White Helmets. Let's talk about the White Helmets. They were founded in 2013 by a British ex-military officer. They have been funded to the tune of $100 million by the US, UK, Europe, and other states. The White Helmets are the UN group that are supposedly going in there to help people, to help the Syrian refugees. And they're definitely, again, it's a miss. I'm not trying to say that everybody is for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and that all the people happily came running back. But there are videos like this that show Syrian residents celebrating the Aleppo victory. Basically, you see here they are dancing in the streets. This is just from a couple nights ago. You can find plenty of videos like this. You can also find bloggers claiming that, they're being attacked, that Assad is killing our people. He said we could let some people leave the city, and now he's attacking us again. It doesn't really make sense, though, because you think about this. They're saying, and I'm going to post all these links. Eva Bartlett, the journalist I was just talking about, that link is going up right now. So they're saying that the Syrian people are fleeing from the President Bashar al-Assad, even though him and the Russians are fighting back against ISIS and rebel-held territories. That's what's happening, is the West and their version of terrorists are being beat by the Syrians and the Russians. And that doesn't mean that I support Bashar al-Assad or Vladimir Putin. That's what some people think, is because you call out one side, you must support the other. I will say there definitely are people. I did a pretty good search of Facebook and went across some Syrian Facebook accounts, right? I don't want to just be an American Westerner over here saying, oh, there's nothing happening in Syria. There are definitely people who are viewing this conflict as a negative thing, but there are also people who are celebrating and saying, get the West out of here, get these ISIS rebels out of here. Bashar al-Assad is destroying them so we can return back. They're also letting some of the rebels turn themselves in. There's videos of that. A great article here from the freethoughtproject.com, some more of that Russian propaganda. Corporate media is lying to you. Syrian army freed Aleppo. There is no genocide. From Brother Jay Sirimpolis. Now, I definitely recommend checking out this article. It goes into Eva Bartlett's comments. It goes into what I was just saying, how some of these people relaying the messages about being killed are just bloggers who they may actually be in Syria, or they may just know people there, but they're reporting as if they're live there. And it shows there's also other videos from Sputnik, but of course that is truly Russian-funded media, so you got to be careful. My point here with covering this is we should not accept exactly what the corporate media is telling us. We should accept that fake news exists, and it comes in the form of NBC, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, all these other news broadcasters. And it can come in the form of your newswire before it's news. All these other independent media websites that give us a bad name. So I don't want you to ever completely trust everything I say. I hope that I build up a reputation as a journalist and as a media analyst and as an activist that people trust my judgment, but I always want you to do the homework and to look for yourself. Anybody who tells you, trust me completely, like the government says, hey, we have anonymous sources, you should just trust us. These anonymous sources are correct. We don't need to tell you anything about them. We don't need to show you any actual evidence. But we should definitely be careful of trusting them. Now, I want to go into a couple more points here as we look into Syria. Back in October, George Soros slams Vladimir Putin for heinous crimes against humanity in Syria. And for those of you who've done your homework, you know that billionaire George Soros is also responsible for funding lots of what are known as color revolutions. He funds all kinds of movements. I'm not trying to claim that George Soros is on the ground funding every single activist, because I was out there in Ferguson, Missouri during the Black Lives Matter protests, and apparently George Soros and some of the organizations he worked with did fund money that way and put money that way, but they weren't literally putting money in the pockets of the activists on the ground, and every activist there cannot be said to be an agent of George Soros. So I'm hesitant to say, oh, well, George Soros is funding every movement out there. But without a doubt, his NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and nonprofits that he funds, they send money and train activists in other countries to try to foment disdain and revolution. And that's what they did in Syria. They did that in Libya. They've done it in Iraq, Afghanistan. And the United States has a history. The CIA has been doing that for going on hundreds of years now. Look up Operation Ajax and others, and you can see that this is a practice that's been going on. But I will say that I'm a little bit skeptical when George Soros steps in and accuses Putin of heinous crimes against humanity in Syria. What that means to me is George Soros has an interest in getting into Syria or getting Putin out of Syria, and not just an interest that because he's a great humanitarian. My goal is my suspicion is that he has other motivations to be in there and to want to cause disruption there. And we're about to get to that. What is this all about, right? What is Syria really about? If it's not about saving the Syrians, if it's not about stopping Bashar al-Assad, is that the end game? Wesley Clark gave the speech talking about there was an end game of controlling that whole territory. I want to show you this right here. This is a really good one to look into from Democracy Now!, which of course they're also capable of sometimes repeating stories that have been proven wrong. But right here, this is an interesting slaughter or liberation, a debate on Russia's role in the Syrian war and the fall of Aleppo. So these two guys, one of them claiming that it is a genocide, the other saying that it's not a genocide, that Russia is actually helping. And this is a debate on Democracy Now! So check that out in your own time so you can formulate an opinion on that. But what I would like to offer is a little bit of speculation, and I'm not the first one to speculate this, but back months ago, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote for EcoWatch about Syria. And he wrote this article here called Syria, Another Pipeline War. And look at that. Conveniently, Syria is in the middle of several pipelines next to Turkey, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and other nations that stand to benefit from a pipeline coming through. And he looks at the case for that. He does a great job here of looking at the history of how the U.S. and the CIA have been involved in trying to take power in Syria for some time. Now, this is interesting. In March of 1949, Syria's democratically elected president, Shukri al-Kuwati, hesitated to approve the Trans-Arabian Pipeline, an American project intended to connect the oil fields of Saudi Arabia to the ports of Lebanon via Syria. In his book, Legacy of Ashes, CIA historian Tim Weiner recounts that in retaliation, the CIA engineered a coup, replacing al-Kuwati with the CIA's handpicked dictator, a convicted swindler named Husni al-Zaim. Al-Zaim barely had time to dissolve parliament and approve the American pipeline before his countrymen deposed him 14 weeks into his regime. So they're going to showing that there's a history of the United States, specifically the CIA, trying to get involved in Syria and Iran. And this article it's a really good piece. It's long and it talks about the connection to oil in that industry. Please check that out. I just posted the link right now to that. I advise you taking a look at that because it gives a bit more color to the story to understand what this is about. Oil, control, power, resources, and that brings us back to the beginning of the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline, right? About oil and about control and about totalitarian government and about limitation of freedoms and about destruction of this planet, destruction of the sacred way of life that we are all capable of living. How do we take an active role in resisting these things? I will say that it's becoming increasingly obvious that to be in line with your principles, to be in line with principles that respect the earth and respect this planet and respect all life, we are going to have to break the law at some point. What do I mean by that? That extreme statement? I mean that the people in control of the United States government and governments around the world and their corporate partners are beginning to limit our rights, if such a thing exists, and our ability to express ourselves. So they're going to make it illegal to think, illegal to print the truth. They'll label it fake news, illegal to defend the earth. You're on private property. You're violating this corporation's rights. We will have to face the reality that becoming a warrior for truth and for justice and for light and love and compassion means that you will have to push back a little bit. They have a surveillance state. They have a police state. Erected, if not outright. If Americans haven't quite got it yet, if the world hasn't quite got it yet, I think we're getting to the stage where it's going to become painfully obvious that we are living in this. Some of us have been paying attention for quite some time, and we've seen this, and we're glad that you're starting to see it now, because this means we can all move forward, because it has to get dark before we can move on to something better. People have to recognize there's a problem before they are willing to change for the better. So the problem becomes apparent, change becomes necessary, solutions are presented, and we're able to evolve. We're in the middle of that. We're in the early stages of that. The problems have become apparent, have they not? Now we are faced with a choice. Do we start to fight directly? Do we continue to fight through voting? Do we choose violence? Do we choose an alternative? Or do we sit by and do nothing? These are options that are in front of us. Ultimately, I think that the true solution, the one that I have found on my path as an activist, as a free human seeking to live as in line with this planet and the people as I possibly can, I have to live in line with my values. That means I embrace encrypted technology. I embrace freedom cells so that I can have encrypted communications. I can have backup supply of food. I can have preparedness. I can learn skills. I can spread knowledge so that me and my friends, my closest family unit, that freedom cell can build, and we can encourage and build others. So we build hundreds of freedom cells around the United States and around the world, and we establish a decentralized network that can challenge the status quo, not to replace it so that we can become the new masters, but to break it down And actually, no, not even that, to allow it to break itself down, because the current system and the paradigm is totally unsustainable and will fall and collapse whether we like it or not. But we can either be proactive and build now, or we can be reactive and wait till there is no other option but to loot, to riot, to scrape by and try to survive. I choose something else. I choose freedom. I choose trying to build a better world for the future, for myself, for the seventh generation, for the generations that come further into the future than we can imagine, and for this planet. And if for nothing other than just to say that I didn't stand by while there was brutality and horror happening in my world. It's up to each of us to take a path of a journey of truth and to try to find solutions. I wholeheartedly believe Freedom Cells is the answer. One of many answers. I'm not going to say it's the only answer, but building within our community, that concept itself. I have a video coming out called Tools for Community Building. It will be coming this week on the Conscious Resistance Network. I do this every Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. Central from here in Houston, Texas. And you can tune in there. You can also, as I said, follow me on patreon.com/Derrick Broze if you want to follow me directly and support me on a monthly basis, because I'm not funded by any corporate powers. I'm just funded by my own drive to tell the truth and to find solutions. You can check out freedomcells.org, and you can also check out, do you have a link to the Freedom Cells? freedomcells.org. Go to there and watch every single video on there that I put together. It's all there, and it shows you how to work together. I do believe that the solutions that we seek are being presented. I'm working on the last book in the Conscious Resistance trilogy. For those who are unaware, the Conscious Resistance is the name of the website, it's the network, and it's a book series that myself and John Vibes have written. You can download both books for free. Go to theconsciousresistance.com, and you can see that. So what we're promoting, though, is that there is a way to evolve past the need for corporate and state power that doesn't have to involve force, that we can take care of ourselves. We can have spiritual and conscious evolution and move out of this revolution, this revolving, going in circles, and step out of that. And we can do this through nonviolent communication. We can do this through community building. We can do this through Freedom Cells and using that as a tool for guiding us to this next stage. We can do this through agorism and counter-economics by vacating the system, removing ourselves from the corporate and state powers that enslave us, and focusing our energy on alternative currencies, on cryptocurrencies, on anything that gives us an alternative to the state and that does not reroute us back into the same problems, like voting and other reform measures that I believe ultimately will just, continue this revolving door. We can all take steps to do that. It's up to each of us to find that path. I choose spirituality. I choose anarchism, sovereignty, individual power. You can find more about that in my books. And evolution, you really need faith for that. I'm not talking about evolution in the sense of science. You can believe whatever you want on that. I'm talking about evolution as a species, our spiritual, our heart, and our mind evolving past the state that we think violence that is inherent in the system is necessary. Again, if you're paying taxes on the system, this is not about placing blame, but recognize that we are all paying. If you're paying part of your own enslavement. You're supporting morally through your vote and through your taxation a system that is built on violence and oppression. So I want to live as close to my principles as possible, which means not supporting violence, not initiating violence, not supporting control and domination. And to do that, I have to remove myself from the system. So this is why I'm focused on building Freedom Cells. I'm focused on land projects. So in the next year and a half, after I do the Conscious Resistance Tour in the spring, and we spread these ideas around the country, and we start building Freedom Cells and start building Freedom Hubs, communities that are focused on mindfulness, on compassion, on nonviolent communication, on counter-economics, and on individual power and community building through that, this triangle of power that I see. After we spread that, I believe we will be in the position where we can start actually having active communities, networks to build and to work together, and eventually completely outroute the state. We don't need them. We can create the alternatives to that. So that's what my goal is. Again, download my books. They're both available for free. I'm going to post the links to you right now on the Conscious Resistance Facebook, the website right there. Watch Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is a cool documentary. It's definitely one I watched early on in my career. I don't know if I would stand by everything that's in it now, but I definitely think it's a good place to start. And check out Freedom Cells. If you guys haven't checked out the Conscious Resistance Network Facebook page, if you're new here, please go give us a like. We're at 19,175 likes. I would very much appreciate it if you can help push us over 20,000 before the end of the year. Help us reach more people. We've grown and we've tripled our following this year in just the last 4 or 5 months, and that's because of a lot of my work and the work of our team, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm posting the links to the books right now. You guys can download them for free. If you like them, you can buy them, but I won't be mad if you don't buy them. You can just download them, spread the knowledge, and spread the love, spread the awareness. So thank you guys for listening. My name is Derrick Broze, DerrickBroze. I am on a Facebook hiatus right now, so I'm not going to be on Facebook to be reached right now, but you could definitely contact me at derrick@theconsciousresistance.com, and if you send messages to the Conscious Resistance Network Facebook page, then I will see them as well. And I very much appreciate all this. Again, comment below, let people know where you're listening from so they can understand that this is a global movement, a global awakening taking place everywhere that we live, and together we are changing the world. Thank you guys all for commenting along, for talking. Very much appreciate that. Share this whenever I'm done if you haven't. And before we finish, though, we're going to do a positive affirmation. Look, this is from Finding Freedom in an Age of Confusion. This book is meant for, the back it says, being an activist can be a difficult road sometimes, but the righteous path is never easy. Most of us encounter the same struggles on these paths, but these struggles are rarely ever talked about. When someone, quote, wakes up and realizes their society is not free, it can sometimes lead to depression, confusion, or alienation from family and friends. This is what happens when the whole world is mad and you are seeing the world clearly for the first time. So this book is written for people who are going through that difficult stage. You feel like you're alone, you think you're crazy, you're looking at the world and trying to understand it. Check out our book. Hopefully it'll provide some tools for you. One of those tools is positive affirmations. This one I wanted to read to you guys. This is the way it works is you can repeat this as you like. It's called Finding Balance. These are all written by myself and John Vibes. Thank you guys for all your kind words. I very much appreciate it. So repeat this after me. I'll go kind of slow and we'll do this together. First, let's take a deep breath. Today, in this moment, I am thankful for my strength and success. I am grateful for the perceived failures that are lessons for me on my path. In this moment, I choose balance. I choose to release that which is weighing me down or keeping me in the clouds. I strive for an acceptance of all my emotions, good, bad, and everything in between. I accept and own all of my emotions. I choose to listen to my body, mind, and spirit and move in a direction that stabilizes me and promotes balance. Let's do that again. I choose to listen to my body, mind, and spirit and move in a direction that stabilizes me and promotes balance. I choose to remember that balance must start with my thoughts, move to my words, and then my actions. Balance must start with my thoughts, my words, and then my actions. Only then will the balance be long-lasting and genuine. Finally, I recognize that this is a continuous process, and I allow myself to stumble so I may pick myself up stronger than ever. Allow yourself to stumble because you are stronger than everything that they taught us we should fear. We are much stronger together. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. It's been a lovely evening with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this everywhere you can. Find us here every Friday. Go to our YouTube channel. Check out more content, and stay tuned. Thank you guys so much. Remember this, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.